Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. If you're returning to this video for a second time to practice, I've placed timestamps down in the description box below so you can jump straight to the content you're looking for. In a recent YouTube poll, I asked you which Coltrane composition you found the most challenging as an improviser. And by a large margin, Giant Steps came up top. If you did choose another composition, we will definitely get to look at those in the future. However, they all share a lot of compositional similarities, which this video will cover. Firstly, it's impossible for me to create content on this channel which is appropriate to everyone's learning styles and preferences. I always aim to create content which I feel that I would have benefited from 5 or 10 years ago. And hopefully in doing so, some of you will find that my approach suits your preferred method of learning. However, I completely understand if this approach doesn't seem right for you. It is simply a progressive method which makes sense to me. This video is mostly backing tracks, hence the length. I've divided 15 Giant Steps primer exercises into 3 groups, and each of the 3 groups will be presented as a separate video. Ensure that you are regularly listening to Giant Steps performed by all of your favourite players. In doing this, you are priming your brain to imitate and be inspired by the vocabulary and phrasing ideas you hear on these recordings, and that will really help you work through this method. Imagine trying to learn a language by only reading and writing, but never listening. It just wouldn't come out right no matter how hard you studied or how sound the method you were following was. The more paths or synapses your brain has to locate specific information, the quicker and more effectively it can access and apply that information. So each of these primer exercises is designed to add another path or perspective to our understanding of these iconic Giant Steps changes. Through all 3 groups of primers, we'll be studying the major 7 chord type, the dominant 7 chord type, and the minor 7 chord type built on the 2nd degree, or the Dorian mode. These are in fact the only chord types used in Giant Steps, as it's essentially just a loop of 2-5-1s. However, we will also be using the relative minor, or Aeolian mode, of each key centre. Although these are the same scales, A minor and C major are the same for example, we are approaching them from a slightly different and new perspective, and creating more of those paths. Finally, we are also using the minor 7 flat 5 chord, built on the 7th degree of each key. Some of you might know that as the Locrian mode. This minor 7 flat 5 chord is very closely associated with the dominant chord, and it's also an enharmonic equivalent of the minor 6 chord built on the 2nd degree. B minor 7 flat 5 and D minor 6 are identical chords, for example. Again, this chord type offers a slightly different perspective through the changes. Each of these 5 chord types are essential tonalities which will help you well beyond Giant Steps. This first group of studies has removed most of what makes Giant Steps familiar to us. We are left to focus only on the bare bones harmonic content of the median relation, which we know better as the Coltrane changes. This is the modulating of a chord type around the augmented structure, or in other words, modulating by major thirds. If we can't get our head, eyes and hands around this Coltrane movement with all other distractions removed, then Giant Steps is going to be currently out of our reach. Practicing moving these 5 chord types through the median relation is a useful skill regardless of whether you intend to eventually play Giant Steps or not. It proves that we have excellent control over the scale patterns and chord shapes, which has a knock-on effect to every corner of our playing. Developing vocabulary that winds nicely through these harmonically uninteresting early exercises is also an important challenge. We can't always rely on the changes themselves to be convenient or pleasant sounding. It is our job as the improviser to carve the most melodic path through them possible, however awkward they might be. So let's get straight to this video's exercises. Before playing along to each backing track, simply play through the changes in free time, spending as long as you like to get comfortable on each key centre before moving on to the next. Focus on arpeggio playing first, before moving on to a more linear approach. Aim to see the neighbouring chord shapes connecting all over the fretboard, and later use these chord shapes as a framework around which scales and melodies can be constructed. This is the way that both Joe Pass and Tim Miller recommend visualising the fretboard. Your aim for all 3 of these videos is simply to improvise as well as you can over all 15 sets of changes, focusing on visualisation and generating some vocabulary. To progress through these 3 videos, I'd suggest that you stick with each video until you feel you've nailed the changes and the tempo. We are aiming for confident soloing in 1/8 notes, so give yourself as much time as you need before moving on to the next video, which will have more challenging changes within a more recognisable Giant Steps context. I hope you enjoy.